Hello and welcome to this episode of the Small Axe Radical Short Film Awards podcast. Today we have on Hélène Mourrier, whose film Hermanas will be screening at our festival. Hélène, welcome.
Welcome. Hi.
Lovely to have you on. Hélène is a graphic designer and artist engaged with queer identities. They currently carry out an aid, Op Trans, in collaboration with the association U-Trans, a project on the various feminizing and masculinizing operations for trans people. After having trained in ceramics, installation and performance, they are commissioned in creating graphic design orders for feminist circles and collaborators, whilst also belonging to several militant collectives fighting for the queer community. They now teach graphic design and editorial design while continuing their transdisciplinary practice. Hélène is also part of the inclusive typographic research collective Bye Bye Binary, who aim to deconstruct the French language binary system to aid linguistic expression of non-binary identities. And in 2021, they produced their first short film, Hermanas. I would hope, Hélène, we could start with asking how Hermanas came to be made. That's right.
Yeah. So obviously the starting point of this movie is my meeting with Kuko, our encounter, and after that, and very quickly, my other discovery was the fact that they could not exist in public spaces. So I decided to make this movie because of a specific situation for a trans person. And when I speak about this movie, most of the time I explain that it's an authoritarian form. And when I say that, I mean that it gives to me, but also to another person, which is Kuko, who is Kuko, sorry, to speak another language than the dominant one. So for me, it was also to make something against the system like cis heteropatriarchal system, and the system in place to oppose it and to also tell other stories, because I think when you create a new language or things, you can also bring utopias to become heterotopias, so meaning that they can be real. So your utopia can be real because you are telling other stories. And also this movie was the idea to show this person with my own eyes, and to stop the violence that Kuko lives in France, because when you are like telling these stories, you are building something else than the reality. And so it was possible for me to create a new space and a safe space, a space for care and also for repair because of the situation they is living. And so also what I discovered is like to make this movie reopen all other spaces for Kuko. It permits to them to be recognized, to be seen, and to exist. So each time the film is selected, for the Radical Film Festival, it's very important because some people are going to meet them. And also it leads Kuko to be invited for performance, interviews, readings. And so for me, it's really about reversing the stigma, which is in the militant spaces, something very important. Really made and built. I started without any production because I did not come from school or film training. And I have like a star near to me, which is Victor Zebo, my head operator on the movie, and who is also my best friend. So Victor decided to engage himself in this movie without having any promise of production money or anything else. So I think it was something very important to have this person very near to me. And so I suffered many rejection for subvention or production. But the Station Gare des Mines, which is a residency for artists, proposed to me to have a residency, and so I decided to embark in this adventure. And so we first have a time of shooting in France, and then in Mexico, and to finish in London, and without any production. And then it's after the lockdown in January that we have finished the film, like the shooting part. And then I get the GREC, which is the acronym of Experimental and Cinematographic Research Group, as a post-production assistance. So this is the way the film was built, like materially.
So your film deals dominantly and firstly within the opening section with the notion of a transgender identity. And I was wondering, in representing Kuko as sort of nebulous and born from mystery and myth, they also have the ability to transcend time and space. Were you speaking back to dominant portrayals of transgender people in the media, and particularly anti-transgender portrayals?
Your question for me is perhaps to oppose transsexuality and trans identity. Like when I receive it, I have like the impression it was this opposite thing, perhaps. Before, I think, like before opposing the anti-transgender representation given by the media, the film opposed the representation of trans people still dominating in the media. So I'm going to try to explain my idea, but like there is just this binary representation, which is based on the fabrication of transsexualism. And so this word, invented after Second World War, is still nowadays considered as an ILD. I don't know if it's the same term in England, but in French it's long-term affection. And previously it was considered as a mental illness, as homosexuality. So in this perspective, the operation that trans people can decide to have are seen and participate as a psychic care provided to trans people. So it is about repair through reassignment. And so I think it's something that leads to think that you are wrong in, no, you are born in the wrong body. And so if you're making like some kind of operation, they are made to be, in this case, with transsexualism, you have only like two gender recognized, and it's very like binary. And so operations are seen only in a reconstruction, and it's very about the psychiatrization also of transition. So for me, I think like the main discourses in the media are very constrict on this. And so there is the reassignment is very about to recompare people in the right sex with the right gender. So this vision is very bad, because it excludes a world of sets of feelings, of perception, of also personal and political choice related to the fact of transitioning. So a lot of people are not recognized in this kind of representation. And also it leads to not recognize the gender figure, trans person, non-binary, etc. And also to have a set of fabrication of bodies and identities. So for me, perhaps the movie is more about not against anti-transgender representation, but against also the transgender representation in the media, where you have only two kind of gender and nothing else. I think also perhaps I have to say that I'm not against hormone therapy or operation. This is really not what I'm saying, but I'm against psychiatrization and medicalization of trans identities. With outrance, we were very for the free choice of people without the consent of the medical profession, and this is what we do with the OP Trans project, which is about all the operation have, and without any moral or ethic point of view on this. Like ethic point of view, yes, but not moral. And when we met with Coucou, I immediately understood that their identity was out of the frame and out of the format, and that they did not belong to any categories, meaning that recognizable categories, but it was more about something unnameable, something that we can name in the ability of their identity. And I think it's important also because it's the main thing in the film, and it's in the beginning. The manifesto with Coucou is opening the film, and so you can hear since the beginning the impermanence and the multiplicity of the identity, and I think it's very important also for them and about transgender identity nowadays.
So your film deals with the common oppression under the French state that Muslims, Black people and trans people face. So how far is intersectionality important to your work, and how do you believe the movement for trans rights intersect with other issues faced within our society? I mean, broadly in a Western sense.
I identify as a trans feminist person, and I think trans feminism is already a shape or form of intersectionality, in fact, because this current, which is a radical feminist current, is about to think feminism since the trans question or the trans issue. So for me, like to explain, it's seeing the systemic gender oppression from the most vulnerable people. And I think, so I'm trying to say it in another word, that it's very against the nature of the feminine, and to think it's more cultural. And then for me, it's immediately something that brings the idea of intersectionality, to think the oppression since the gender oppression, since the people the more vulnerable. And also the queer motto, I think it comes from the Queer Nation, fuck your gender, fuck your sex, and fuck your sexuality, speak about this explosion of categories and their artificial construction. A first form of intersectionality in my life or in my work and in my activism, I think in the center of my activism and militantism. And I beat them with the also situated knowledge and the standing point. And in the case of Herman Oas, Coucou discovered this law prohibiting the veiling of the face in public space at the same time as their birth at their birth. And so this law is originally Islamophobic and turns to women wearing the veil. And if at the beginning of their trans identity, Coucou did not suffer too much from it, and was simply being at best as a performer or an eccentric person, and at worst as a mad person, there was a real acceleration after the Bataclan attacks, just after our meetings. Just after the Bataclan attacks, the state of emergency in France and also the Vigipirate plan were declared and have a serious impact on their ability to exist. Because it leads Coucou to become a threat to public order, and they was propelled into this question of identity checks and therefore racial profiling in a way. So their identity began to act as a revealing agent of a disorder in France, no for a long time, I mean, but of which they suddenly also became a victim in a way. So this film is about identity check, like one point of the film through civil identity and IDs for both trans people and also for people of color. There is an history of assignment, reassignment, controls, and also fear related to those. So trans people and POC as historically experienced also the police violence through humiliation, insults, beatings, sexual abuse, and also murders. And even if I believe nowadays the LGBT community in the West is no longer the target of police attack, because this police attack finished after the Stonewall riots. I think like it was one point, but leads us also to be recognized in society and to have more rights. But it's really not the same for people of color. So the film and the Marche pour Adama, organized by the Comité La Vérité pour Adama and led by her sister Assa Traoré, is presenting the film to attest this need to support other struggle. And even if we are not directly the subject, we have to be allies. And as Assa say, we are warriors despite ourselves. And just to finish your question, I really love Donna Haraway and the way she's thinking. So I believe that it's very urgent to foment multi-species alliances to try in this world that is becoming unbraceable to continue to brace.
So my last question before we sort of wrap up with what you might be doing for the future is the use of extended nightclub sequences, particularly depicting these sort of queer underground spaces. I was wondering, because for some people who might not be versed within sort of queer identities and queer culture and queer underground culture, these might not seem immediately political in nature. So I was wondering what your rationale behind these dance scenes were, and do they expand or do they upon notions of queer and trans identities, and do they expand in a political sense?
The first thing that needs to be said is that we met with Kuko in a club, so I think it's very important. The name of this party was the Blackout, and it was a party plugged in total darkness. And I think it's very important to that it. I think it's the departure of the movie is also linked to this encounter in the night, in the dark, and into a queer party space. So for me, when you go clubbing in queer parties or with the LGBT community, there is something about recognize each other. And it's also a place where you can reinvent yourself. And parties, queer parties, are very have a big and strong history with the struggle of LGBTQI communities. I'm also thinking of Leslie Fedenberg and their book Stone Butch Blues, which is about the dyke and femme community, butch and femme community, and about also this place which were how can I say that? It was forbidden to get as for homosexual person, trans person into clubs and bars, and leads you to possibly to have a confrontation with the police and with the police violence. So I think we have a big history with the night, with the clubbing, and with dancing places, because this was for a long time the only places where we can meet and where we can also exist. So these festive and secret spaces for us are the only place sometimes when you can flirt, when you can kiss, when you can fuck, when you can show off, or when you can dare, and when you can get lost and find yourself, I think. So I think it's also, how can I say that, I really enjoy and love these club spaces, and I think these are places when I can breathe. I go to be able to breathe again in a way in my life. So I think it's very important, and the clubbing is a motive that runs through me and constitutes a whole section of my time and also my artistic work. And for Kuko, it's these places are very important because nowadays, because of the Bataclan attacks and the Plan Vigipirate, etc., these places are the last bastions of freedom that they can have in France, because most of the time, museum, public space, or other place are places that they can go anymore. So the community and the queer community is also places that protect Kuko, because recognize them and let them exist and have places to be. So this is the reason why I decided to have this motif that become this motif like several times in the movie. And also I think it's three times that you can see different kind of way of clubbing. The first time it's very friendly, very funny, and the second is very like strong with like something more about the explosion of the limits. And the last one, it's in London, and it's very more about being into trance, like but by yourself, but also into a community moment. So I think it's interesting also to see this different kind of dance moment with people.
So I'll just end by asking then if what projects do you have sort of in the near future you'll be working on, whether it's like films or artistic groups or activist groups?
So thanks to prize for Herman at Les Écrans Documentaires, which is a festival in France, I obtained a writing residency for an upcoming film. I was not prepared for this, but anyway, I have to, and it's a good thing. So I decided to embark on a new documentary around post-binary typographic practices, because I'm part of the Franco-Belgian inclusive typography collective Bye Bye Binary. We are working on the creation of new grapheme or new glyphs. I don't know how you say that in English, but a grapheme or a glyph is just a combination of several letters that leads to debinarize the French language. So the French language, which is very sexist and binary in its current usage nowadays. So our job is to make non-binary, trans and queer identities visible through typography. And it means to attest to our existences, which have been stigmatized and discriminated. So I think it's like the continuation also of a lot of things that I have already done, yeah. And in parallel, I will continue my work with Bye Bye Binary, because we're doing a lot of workshop, conference, or graphic creation times. And in the more distant future, I'm planning on a ceramic and scenographic project around animal rights, something that is very important for me as a vegan and not anti-specific, multi-specific species person, something like this. So this is it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Hélène, and I wish you the best for all your future endeavors, and all the best for Manas as well.
Thank you very much, Cole, for this invitation for the interview, and also I'm very, very glad to present my movie to Small X Radical Film Festival.